return for grace.
I love being the one to go after lunch. Hopefully you guys will stay awake for me. All right, so I'm here to talk about how do you deal with the multi-product situation. First, let me talk a little bit about me. I had a very interesting journey into my life at Proofpoint. When I joined, we were a company of 100 people, one product. We had 2 people in professional services. So I got to experience the easy deployment methodology, which was one product, this is what we do. As we've grown over the years, I've gotten to experience the other side of that equation. So we've reached a point now where we have 23 different point products that we support. We do over 5,000 engagements a year, and we do it pretty well. We have a relatively high NPS score in our delivery mechanisms that we do with our customers. The one thing I want to share before I get into some of the details here, though, we, like a lot of SaaS companies, have gone a slightly different route with professional services, and I think it's important to set that basis for everyone. We don't run time and materials. All of our projects are fixed priced for our customers for delivery. We're focused, like a lot of SaaS companies, on that recurring revenue, and you see professional services as an enablement mechanism. It's really there to get your customer to renew. That's kind of the context in which I'm going to be focused today. If you are in a traditional T&M world where you're focused on having a P&L, a lot of this may not apply to you. But in the SaaS world, where it's all about the recurring revenue on the product, I think you'll find a lot of this does apply to what you're dealing with every day. So as I said, when I started, we had 2 people, 100 people in the company. So the size of my organization alone now is larger than the company when I joined. We have 4 different platforms that we actually support products on. 3-ish different tech stacks, depending how you want to count tech stacks. Honestly, I could say 5 or 6, but a lot of them kind of coalesce with each other. The one thing I've learned in this time, and I appreciate the introduction about having cracked the code, we only crack the code because we've experienced the stumbles and the fails along the way. I've been at Proofpoint for, 2025? 18 years now. And I've had the opportunity to see this from both sides of the equation, both from someone who owned delivery to at an individual level as a consultant to someone who's now running the whole organization. And a lot of those stumbles I've gotten to either be a decision maker behind, or I have actually got to see firsthand. So one of the first major mistakes we made early on is we did an acquisition. Totally different tech stack than what we were using. We had a Linux-based tech stack for our core product set. We bought this company that everything they did was on Windows. And the applications that were built on top of that were entirely different. So as like most companies, what we did is we kept everything separate. We ran the 2 separate services organizations because it was a different model for delivery. Well, it was great for making organization easy. It wasn't great for our customers. It was a bad experience. If they bought both products, they got 2 different delivery mechanisms. It wasn't even necessarily great for our leaders because the 2 leaders of the respective teams were fighting all the time over resources, over allocation, over process. And so it just did not lend itself to a great experience for our customers. So very early on, we learned a key point, which is if you want a common experience, you need a common organization. The other thing that we learned is if you want to drive efficiencies, you do that through your organization. You're not going to drive that by people being friendly with each other. I'll just be honest. Like, everyone is focused on what's in front of them. They're often not going to work with other teams if they're required to drive efficiencies. So how you drive that organization is critical. And there's really 2 key things that I want to stress before I get into the details on this. Number 1, accountability is the paramount thing. If you do not have someone accountable for something, it doesn't happen. And in a multi-product organization where you have, as I said, 23 different point products, different delivery mechanisms for how we deliver those products, if you don't have accountability, stuff doesn't happen. The other piece of that is, what is your success criteria? How are you measuring results? If you build an organization without keeping your success criteria into account, you often won't achieve that success criteria. And so those are really the 2 key things that you want to drive when you're thinking from a multi-product perspective, along with a single product perspective. It's like, how do I ensure that I have the right accountability? So when you break that down, number one, well, when you break this down, it's really three different areas that I look at personally. This is where I look at from an organization perspective. What's my manager alignment? How do I deploy my technical resources? And are we doing direct or indirect delivery? That often really kind of keys into all of this. For manager alignment, the one thing we decided at Proofpoint a number of years ago, but it's been through fits and trials and tribulations, as I said, is we align our managers with our sales organization. That means a manager in my organization who owns a practice, for a region, is aligned with that sales team for that practice. It gives a single point of entry regardless of product being purchased, and it gives a single point of accountability regarding delivery regardless of what product's being delivered. Because at least for Proofpoint, and I found this with most companies, your sales organization often is going to be your closest tie to your customer. Now, if you also have, say, an overlay CSM organization on renewals, those are often still tied directly to customers, and it's still going to be that direct entry point. And it gives an entry point into your organization, regardless of who is doing the work, regardless of what they bought, that you know who to go to based on that particular region. And we found that to be really successful because the accountability is what drives success, regardless of the number of products. The other thing that we found really hard, though, is how do you address then the technical side of that? You have all these different products. How do you build a technical staff that actually can support all those different products without it being inefficient? And that actually has been the hardest challenge we've faced. It's pretty easy to decide, hey, let's have our managers align with sales. That wasn't a difficult one. But what we did differently on the technical side is we effectively have two pools of resources. So the organizational structure I have, the managers within my organization have consultants that report into them. But those consultants are not there for the managers to use. The managers serve as a line manager for them to help them with career development. We pool all of our resources into one technical pool of resources to be used basically across the region. So we really have three based on region. But at the end of the day, we pool them. When a project comes in, we have a skills matrix that define what every resource can do within the organization and at what skill level. And then we have a common coordination team that actually does initial resource assignment, regardless of what managers it rolls into. We do have manager validation and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, we took resourcing out of the direct manager responsibility of I have a project coming in, I need to get one of my 7 people on it. Oh, they're all booked, and now I need to go ask another manager for resources. We found that if you tied resource management directly to the practice owner, people started hoarding resources and not sharing with each other. And when you get into a multi-product organization, you cannot have every resource in a small team skilled in every product. You're going to have experts buried other places in the organization. So it's led to a very matrix-managed organization around resource assignment. That in itself is its own overhead, and I'm going to tell you it's not an easy overhead. We have put a lot of structure and stuff in place to make that successful, but it is what drives the ability to actually assign the requisite teams for a customer to be able to roll out a multi-product engagement with these customers. The other thing we did early on as well, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the delivery perspective, is making sure you have the right resources from both a technical and project management perspective. When it comes to our product side of things, we've built virtual practices that combined all of the resources virtually that are skilled in a particular product or product set, and we use that to align with our product teams to drive back feedback, how to improve things, what we're experiencing from customers, and really build those sort of technical relationships from a professional services to engineering perspective that you need. And we found as we've grown as a company, when we were 100 people, I could go talk to the person writing the code on what I needed out of it. Proofpoint's now 5,000 people. Even if I know who the person is that was writing the code, I can't necessarily go talk to them nor get them to make changes for me because they happen to be a friend of mine. But what we can do is build the relations between the people who are technically working with the customers and those requisite engineering teams on a small scale by building these virtual practices so we get that feedback.